Three, two, one. Hello, everybody. I am your host, Ben Jaye. We are back for another episode of the Creators Lounge podcast. And this is a special episode because it is a follow-up episode. The guest today is taikun, and a lot of you guys will recognize him just from his own endeavors on the internet and in real life. But also, me and him did an episode a very long time ago. And so more recently, taikun had left a comment on one of my Insta videos, and I was like, hey, man, we got to catch up and do another episode. He was like, I'll make time for it. So we sat down, and here we are today. All right, man, it's unnecessary, but who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
I'm taikun. I'm a lo-fi hip-hop producer based out in California. And I make beats, and I sing on those beats too. That's a new one. And I make edits. I shoot videos.
Fucking creative mastermind out here. Skateboarding as well. Urban exploration a little bit, additionally. All right, man. January 29th, 2019. That's the day our first episode was released. And as we talked about in the pre-show, so much has changed and developed since that time. So give us the 3 to 4 to 5 minute rundown with some of the stuff that's changed for you over the past, what is it, 1, 2, 3 years now?
3 years, yeah, 3 years. In 3 years, I've been living in Los Angeles, and I finished 2 tapes. So I finished 3 tapes, actually. I forgot about my most recent one, and I'm working on some more right now. Just, really been figuring out what my sound is like and what I really want my sound to be, and understanding that I am in control of my output. And also focusing on like my own like mental health, and just really kind of trying to find a peace and balance in what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And when we were last talking, I was like right about to put out Hazakura, which was like my first full-length album. And after that, I just kind of was like, what do I do now? And it had been such a hustle to like get to that point in my career. And like 3 years later, it's kind of strange because it's been 3 years, and 2 of them have been in like the pandemic, essentially too. Yeah. And in that time, it's just like, figuring out what I'm doing, basically, and what do I want to say, and I think I've done that and kind of figured out like where my path is leading.
Congratulations, man. That's super important. It's something I think that all of us have to do at some point in our lives, of questioning, what is my sound? And also, What am I doing and what am I trying to do with my life? And those years can be turbulent. I know they were for me, because whenever you don't really know who you are, you don't know what you're doing, it gets very hard to move forward, because it can be it can lead to depression. It can lead to frustration. It can lead to anger and confusion. So I'm really glad
Let me get back to you in 6 months, honestly. You know what I mean? Everything could change again.
Well, and it will change again. And that's something I wanted to say real quick, because I've been talking with some people right now, some of my closest friends and partners and collaborators, people who I know as being very much like mental health advocates, and even like titans in their own fields of what they create. And I've always seen them as very stable, very based people. But right now they're going through a stage of like, rediscovering who they are. And it's just a reminder of that's the human condition. It's fucking evolution, We're always going to change and develop. But it's not easy whenever you're in that stage of evolution, because there's so much questioning and redefining and everything. I want to rewind a minute ago. You said a phrase that was really interesting to me. You said, realizing that you control your sound. Why did you choose that set of words specifically?
Yeah. So back in my old process, it was kind of like I would take a sound that I like and try to emulate it, and then create my own sound from that. And then, you get into the space of what works, what works for other people. And there was a moment where I realized that instead of me saying, how do I create what I want to create, I was saying, how do I create what works? And that was really like, doing that was starting to affect my process and my creativity and my mood. And I had to really step back and evaluate, like, what is it that I am doing? And am I doing it for the right reasons?
Can I ask you real quick, taikun, just to make sure I understand it correctly? Whenever you say doing what works, was that in terms of like numbers performance, in terms of like comments, in terms of like pleasing someone? What was it specifically that was working about it? Just the fact you were able to make so many songs, or what, what do you mean?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a play count essentially. And trying to like see like, how do I make this like a viable career path that is profitable? And now I'm kind of like, it'll do that when it does that. And I don't need to worry about that. Instead, I should just do what makes me feel artistically like sound. And like what I'm doing is true to myself. And the more I do that, I feel like I'm getting closer to making something that will perform really well, but also is doing well because it just sounds genuine. It sounds like me. And I had this moment where, you know, I just said, I don't want to make what I've been making anymore. I'm going to just be myself 100%. And with that is going to come a lot of changes. And if people don't like those changes, then that's fine with me. And yeah, it's for me, it's been really about just buckling down and saying like, no, I'm not going to compromise anymore. Specifically, like I'm thinking about playlist placements kind of thing. There's so many people who are in control of that process. And if you're an independent musician, you already know, you know, like you submit on all these websites, you wait a couple days, somebody says, this snare doesn't sound as good as I'd like.
Why is it always a snare? Why is it always the snare?
It's something that's inconsequential, or I think should be inconsequential. You know, like the point of the track is something else happening there, right? Or the buildup. And for me, but that's what I've realized is like, I think each of us knows what we're going for and what we're accomplishing, and other people certainly don't necessarily know that. Like they're trying to reach an agenda or like have a playlist that's 100% chill, but like I'm not 100% chill as a creator. Like that's not who I am. Sometimes I'm like a little shy. Sometimes I'm like yearning for something. Sometimes I'm really depressed, and sometimes I'm like bouncing off the walls with energy. And I just, really had to realize, like, what am I doing? How am I going to do it 100% to the point where it is honest? And thirdly, like, how am I gonna be able to create the next thing without worrying about performance? Because I don't think the performance aspect of a release is not nearly as important as I would have in the past.
Oh man,
it'd still be cool for more people to hear it, but like, I think the people who do hear it appreciate it.
I love how eloquently you worded that struggle. It's a struggle that almost every single one, I'll say almost every single one, there might be exceptions, nearly every single creative goes through, of recognizing your personal vision and recognizing your professional vision, and then finding the way to make them intersect and create the desired outcome. I always tell artists that, you know, if your process is not sustainable, then you can't keep doing it. If you don't enjoy your process, you can't keep doing it. If it's not authentic, it's not sustainable.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about right here. I feel like, you know, if you don't enjoy what you're making, then you can't keep making it. And even though we know that to be true, and even though it's easy to say that, in practice, it can be much more difficult for a number of reasons. I think the first thing that people come up against whenever they start to experience that is the fear of judgment, the fear of losing audience, of losing listeners, of losing attention, of being isolated. And then the second thing is like not being accepted by the scene, people not signing your songs, people not promoting your work, people not, you know, respecting your work. So let's jump into it on the music first of all, because for you, taikun, especially compared to where you were last time, you've made massive changes and development and growth, both in terms of your sound and in terms of like your content creation and marketing. So looking at the music, first of all, like you said, you came to a point where you realized that you had to be doing it for yourself. You had to be more authentic with your sound. Walk us through that journey. What were some of the things that you did to start making those changes? Was it a practice of like, okay, I'm going to start sampling differently. Okay, I'm going to start, singing on my tracks. I'm going to start doing, what was the differences that you started making to be more authentic with your sound?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it all really started with Dusty. I mean, I think I'm going to talk about Dusty a lot here because Dusty was this album concept that started out as like, I'm taking these samples and I'm running them through my sampler, and like, how many times can I flip the same track a different way? Will people even realize it? I don't think people did realize it. But the thing that's cool about it, though, is that Dusty was just this idea. And it was just like, I'm going to call it that. It sounds like a good name. But during the process, I really hit like this rock bottom for me where, I was putting in so much work on these tracks and I really liked them, but I didn't like them enough, and I was chasing that idea of perfection. And then I just kind of tabled it. I tabled it for a long time, probably 6 to 7 months. I just didn't even work on it. Instead, I was like, just working on other stuff completely and like singing or like, working on my editing a little bit more and taking videos for myself because I kind of missed like shooting videos and making movies because I have a background in that. But just along the way, I realized like I needed some help, and I started like going to some therapy, and that really, really helped me. Doing that has been like so much of the process of like me creating the music that I create now. I would 100% like account to me being able to talk to somebody about my thoughts and like figure out how to express those thoughts to another person, and also understanding what thoughts like I can let go of. And like this whole idea of perfection is at least for me ego. And I want to fight my ego every day pretty much. And I just decided to start singing. I've always sung over my music, but it was kind of like as I'll never do that, or like, one day I'll do that on a different project or something. But then, I realized like the aspect to my music that's really making me unhappy is the fact that I'm making these beats and these songs and I'm not really expressing myself. Like I'm trying to. That's kind of like where the skits come in, is like adding a level of narration to a beat. I've always admired that, like beat makers who can tell a story with instrumentals. And I really wanted to do that. But there was a moment when I was creating Dusty where I just realized like I have a personal story to tell and I think I need to say it. And I just started busting my ass to like make that happen. And I have this little quote in Dusty actually, where I found this sample of Dusty Springfield that the project started to take shape and become like this caricature, like this idea of Dusty Springfield. Like, who was she? Who am I? What am I trying to do? Is it related to this other artist who went through turmoil in her own life? Doing that made me realize that like I've always wanted to sing, so I should just do it. And that's really the biggest change, I feel like, is that I'm working towards making a project that I don't think is perfect, but I think is fully expressive of where I am in my life. And that's powerful. That's really the goal.
That's so powerful. So powerful. It's something I think happens a lot. Even though on social media, my messages often create a reality, I feel like in a lot of ways, the human experience is discovering who we are. Like it's already there. but we have to be brave enough to pull it out. We have to be brave enough to express it, and share it instead of hiding it or suppressing it, which happens so much. Suppressing identity. My gosh, dude. My gosh.
That's really what the whole, I think the beauty of listening to any album is that other people can come up with their own interpretations. But I certainly do have like my own interpretation of my last release, Dusty. And for me, it really is like, is this idea. It's interesting you say that, like what you just said, because I feel like we're all constantly creating our own reality. We're all trying to see where we fit into this bigger picture, or at least in the picture that we're encompassing.
Right.
And there is like who we are is really there all along, and based off of formative experiences. It's based off of experiences that have happened like over time.
Right.
And there's the person that you are that you've like built because of those experiences, and that person isn't real. You're in here, and you're also not here. It's kind of interesting. It's like the true self that exists between both, and trying to really reach that equilibrium in all aspects of life, I think has been hugely important to like what I'm doing now, and how I'm trying to express myself.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, dude. It's important. It's always important to recognize that who we are is not who we always have to be. And obviously people can have their different terminologies they use here, but I feel like kind of what you were referring to is like who we see ourselves as versus who we could potentially be, like the potential self, you could say. And to your point, like we are shaped by our experiences, both positive and negative. But whenever we let those things shape us and don't take control of that shaping process, it can turn us into more of an unhappy result. If you let your trauma dictate your future, then it's gonna lead to a bad place. If you let your negative experiences shape you, it's gonna lead you to a bad place. You definitely have to become conscious about what did shape me. What were the positive things? What were the negative things? And how has it brought me to where I am now? And how do I feel about that? And how do I want to do it differently? You mentioned about going to therapy. And it's something that so many people should be considering, if not doing.
I highly recommend it.
I want to ask you about that, Taikun. For anyone who's listening that hasn't gone to therapy yet, obviously there is a lot of free resources on the internet that are very beneficial. I've tried to do it with my page. All of us try to lend our voice in some manner to help people with their mental health, because we're all struggling with it. If I could ask you, you don't have to answer if you're uncomfortable with it, what was the switch for you between just using online resources versus actually paying someone to help you with your therapy?
Yeah, well, it's an easy answer for me, actually. I mean, I just like talking to people. I'm a chatterbox. I get really long-winded. And to be quarantining for a long time and only talking to a couple people, like in my quarantine circle, it's to a point where like you don't want to unload on your friends and be unfair to them, because your friends aren't your personal therapists, and it's good friends are there for you, and
a support group,
definitely
for sure.
Yeah. But at the same time, to talk to a professional is entirely different, and they know what they're talking about, and they listen to you. At least you form a relationship with this person, and they understand what you're going through before you do. They see the patterns because it's their job.
Pattern recognition, really, dude. Exactly.
Yeah, it's pattern recognition, and what I was talking about earlier is the oh my gosh, what is it called? The something self. The real self, or something like that. Your inherent self is always present, and now I'm at a point where I'm thinking about like, does trauma make you the person you are, or does trauma make you the person that you were, and you have a choice to decide like if you're going to keep thinking about that and letting it shape your actions, or if you're going to instead like let it go and be the person you want to be. and I think like that's only possible if you're really talking with somebody and self-reflecting in a completely honest way. It's a lot of like release and being vulnerable.
It's awesome. It is
awesome. Yeah.
And then also
awesome.
Well, it is because people underrate it. People don't understand how important it can be to talk about stuff and get it out. The thing is that whenever you're not talking about it, it's staying in here. And then you become an echo chamber of just, echoing back your same ideas. Life is shit. It's always been shit. It's going to keep being shit. And it's not true. It's going to be shit if it stays in here. Once you can start talking about it, you can start finding better strategies. And so, even though it seems basic or straightforward or even seems like unhelpful to talk about it, nope, you don't know until you've tried it. It can actually lend to so much growth and more happiness. I want to transfer that into like content then. Obviously, as you said, as you did therapy, as you kind of faced yourself more and started to explore these ideas and concepts more, mental and emotional and physical, maybe even spiritual, I'm not sure, it helped you to be more authentic with your sound. What about with making content on social media? Do you feel like that process was also gave you the courage or the inspiration to be posting more content on social media? Because you've definitely, have massively increased your social media content creation, both on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, since the last time we talked back in 2019. So I was curious about your mental development and how that coincided with your content creation.
I just really took a break, honestly, from social media for a minute. I wanted to focus more on the music creation without having to focus on the content side of it, and just put out the music that I want to put out and see how it performs without any kind of content creation. But I really do view content creation as a tool for an artist to get their work out there and just share it. I don't really like to think of it as like a potential to go viral type thing at all. I'm just kind of like sharing what I want to share. That's how my mentality's changed. If it performs well, then I just say like, oh, people must really like that one. I'll take note of that.
Right.
That's kind of a good way to like see what the single could be for an upcoming release or something like that. But honestly, like when it comes to content creation, I'm just still very impulsive about it. Like if I wake up and I don't want to make music, then I'll say, well, what have I made recently that I like? Let's make a video. And I'll do that, and I'll have a good day making a video. So I think there was a moment though where like I was trying to make content every day, like 3 years ago, and then I stopped and started doing it every week. And now I'm trying to get back to doing it every week. But at the same time, I'm not like beating myself up if I miss a deadline. It's because I'm working on music. And not beating myself up about that has been really nice and productive for the whole art creation process. But I do like TikTok. I think TikTok is like the new frontier, and I'd really like to crack it, just because like, I don't know, there's some kind of like work ethic and like creative charge that does get fed when you see like growth really happening. And that's what's really interesting about TikTok to me, is it represents like unadulterated growth and like this new generation of users who want to find art that's appealing to them, art or funny memes or dance videos. I like the dance videos.
They're fun. They're fun.
There's these two guys, and they always do the same song. I would always you, girl. I don't know how it goes. Tell your friends you ain't coming out tonight.
Oh, dude.
It's a good song.
It's a good song. No.
TikTok's changed everything, too.
Oh, okay. In what ways would you say?
Well, like, for instance, like old songs are going up on the Billboard charts because TikTok users are using them. Yep. Like that's interesting. Like never before has a song that was released like 30 years ago gone back up on the charts.
Right.
So that's really interesting. But also like kids who are making joke songs like can get on the charts.
Yeah,
it just goes to show that like the chart happens when the collective likes the content, not when someone is saying, how can I go on the chart? Like, the conversation has shifted into this new, like I said, frontier. Like, it feels like a gold rush.
For sure. And isn't it funny that we finally have a social media platform that's actually really focused on music, and it still gets so much hate, especially from like the creative circle of people like, TikTok's lame, I don't have time for TikTok. It's like, you finally have a platform for music. It's like, and you still don't like it.
I was dismissive of TikTok. We were talking about this earlier too, where you were telling me like a year ago, you should get on TikTok. Like, and I was saying, well, I don't know if I want my music to be associated with memes. But like, then I realized like now, like that's just me being dismissive, generalizing. I think people do that when they're uncomfortable with change. And, you know, we already do so much work on all these other platforms. Like if there was another platform that came up and it was just like TikTok, I would definitely say I'm not doing that because like, it's TikTok.
Yeah.
But after experiencing TikTok, I can definitely say that it's different from Instagram. And I mean, Instagram in 3 years has changed a lot too. So that's another conversation entirely, even.
Yeah. No, it's cool, and I can vouch for taikun, by the way, to the audience listening, of him creating from a place of authenticity and just genuine care for his content. Something a lot of people struggle with is that balance between making something for the sake of making it and making something so that it blows up. And because of that, a lot of artists feel uncomfortable with putting content out there because they're thinking of it in terms of marketing and advertising. But then for people like me and taikun, who have been in the game for so long, you can see from our past actions, it's not even just words at this point, it's past actions of like, nope, we've been here, we've been doing this. Like, if we're doing it to make millions, then we're doing the wrong fucking thing. Like, you know, you can tell that, like, you know, we're doing it from a place of authenticity just because we've been doing it for so long, so consistently, and we just continue to do it. You know, there's something about it that's attractive to us, that's meaningful to us. And I can't speak for taikun, obviously he'd have his own opinions on this. I know for myself, it's scratching that creative itch. I have to be creative. I'm just a creative individual. And so creating content allows me to be creative. Whether it's getting views or no views, I've got to make content because that's how I express myself, you know? And I think that everyone needs to find that, you know, what is it that you want to do, and then start doing it. And for a lot of us, it's going to be content, because content's so versatile. It can be written word, it can be spoken audio, it can be videos, it can be interviews, it can be aesthetic videos. There's so many things that content refers to. And so whenever I'm talking with creatives, I'm always like, make content. I'm not saying make one specific kind of content. I'm just saying make content. And that your content could be whatever you want it to be, but if you create content, you're scratching that creative itch, and you're also providing value to an audience of people that are going to vibe with you and respect you and come to love you as well. So it becomes a community aspect as well. So there is a marketing side to it, but the creation process itself is pure of like, this is who I am, therefore this is what I'm making. All right, man, on top of all the music development, on top of all the content creation, you've also done a number of festivals, I believe, in real life and then also online as well. Talk to us about that, man. What was it like doing the live sets in person, not on the internet?
Oh man, so there are these great guys, Beats Freaks Geeks, here in town in Los Angeles, and I met them through Little Bad Snacks. She was at this event with Lo-Fi Vibe. He's on Instagram, and when I moved to LA, I was like, how am I even going to do this? I have no clue. But there's all these different communities on the internet, and then they live in the real place, and essentially, you know, they just hit me up and ask me if I want to play a gig, and I say yes. And it's always fun to like play some beats for people and feel that energy in the crowd. I used to get really, really nervous. I remember my first gig was with Beats Freaks Geeks. I was very, very nervous. But I got a couple of drinks in me, and I just, you know, I know what I'm doing. So thankfully I know what I'm doing. So, you know, you get up there and you just play your beats. But yeah, it was great doing that live in LA. Like, yeah, 3 years ago, and even 2 years ago, I was still doing that. And I actually, before Dusty came out, like I played a couple of those tracks like live in Long Beach at this other collective. Doing live shows is just a lot of fun for me. But I've been a performer for a while, like from like my past, like in high school, I used to play like jazz drums at basketball games, which was weird, but yeah,
you gotta get started somewhere.
yeah. But also, jazz combos in college, and so I'm used to performing, and it's not something that makes me super nervous. But playing beats live is definitely more fun because it's like I've created this entirely. So it's like this moment where you're like, I'm gonna make this sound totally different than it will ever sound ever again. And everyone who's present is in this moment with me, and they're experiencing that. And to give a unique experience to somebody, I think is one of my like more enjoyable things that I'll do in life. I love performing.
Straight up, man. Well, then also you're kind of into video creation as well. You mentioned on the podcast before, it's obvious with the stuff you've done on Insta and TikTok even now. I wanted to ask you about the creation process for doing an online festival. How much time and effort and thought goes into making an online festival in terms of the set list, in terms of the visual, in terms of the aesthetic? How much time and effort do you put into that? And what's the kind of process that you use to put together a live set for the internet?
There's not really like a set amount of time that it will go into creating a set. I think the visuals are the last thing I do. For instance, like what you're seeing right now behind me is the combination of two things. I wanted to make my room look cooler, but second thing was just like I've always wanted to hang my vinyl up on the wall, and found a way to do it, and it's awesome. I can like change the vinyl on the wall, and I really like that setup, and just kind of being able to showcase the different tastes that has informed what I'm like bringing to you. That's how I like to think about it. Like they're not up here for no reason. Like it's because it's what I've been listening to or what has been in my mind recently. And that doesn't have to actually affect the performance at all, but it helps. It tricks me into thinking that it's deeper. But at the same time, I'll probably put in like an hour and a half into building a set when I have a show. And what I'll do is, I'll just evaluate like where my headspace is. And if I'm mostly negative, then I'll play a lot of heavy hitting beats or something, or I'll like bring one of my beats with a skit in, like a skit that's talking about something political.
Yeah.
Or I'll just keep it like very low key. For my last show I did with Beat Cinema, it was actually a live stream event, but I pre-recorded it. They live stream all the gigs together once you send your video in. Right. For that, I mean, like I really built this huge set of all of these tracks that I had just finished, and in that case, like I didn't really put a lot of planning into it at all. Like those are just all the tracks I had just finished that month. So like, yeah, let's just share these. And then what's interesting is like a lot of those tracks I want to put on a release in October on my Bandcamp. And like I had an idea of how the order was already going to be, so I just kind of played them in that order. They're in a different order now, but like for that specific Beat Cinema gig, I mean, that was just the arbitrary order I had on my paper. And I thought it sounded good together. Like, yeah. And I think after Dusty, I really realized that transitions are like my favorite part of a live performance. And I like to think of my albums as a live performance, like a perfectionist like version of it. Like this is how it would sound on a perfect day, essentially. So really, the transitions are the thing I work on the most, because that's what separates a decent performance in my head between like somebody going, wow, that was crazy. And I want people to say, wow, that was crazy, because it's inspiring. I don't know.
It is, dude. It's that collective feeling. That's what live shows are. It's a collective energy of, the creative showing off who they are, telling a story, presenting their emotions, and then the audience also being like, there's something in that I relate with. There's something in that I vibe with. This is a moment. That's crazy, And
there's something different from like when you put a video up on the internet and it gets like 20,000 views or something, that feels good because you're like, I did something right. But when you're on stage and you're playing a beat that you don't think people will like, and like everyone in the front row is going, that's a great feeling. That's like, it doesn't matter how the track performs.
Yes.
It's like this track is doing something for someone, and being able to visualize that process is what I like about performing live, like a lot. I really miss it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get back to it.
Oh yeah, dude. And I think every single musician I've talked to has said the same thing. Can't wait to get back to it because that energy is insane.
It's gonna be awesome. Yeah,
it is. Well, and then I want to follow up on that point about, you said there at the end how you made something and it means something to the audience. And then you mentioned before about pulling like political skits. For you, man, like a lot of your growth has happened, during the turbulent social and political turmoil of the States the past couple of years, in terms of the pandemic, in terms of the presidency, in terms of social equality issues and all of these sort of things. I think I want to ask you, first of all, just as a precursor question, how much do you think that played a role in your own self-discovery process? Do you feel like because the environment was like that, it was also forcing you to kind of turn more inwards? Or do you think they were totally unrelated?
I definitely agree with it. It made me turn more inwards. When the world, when you start perceiving the world as only one thing, and especially in the turbulent time we were living in with Trump as president, an era I'll never forget. I don't know if I'll ever forget it, because so much, even right now, like they're trying to overturn Roe v. Wade, like it's still happening.
Right.
We live in a country with a set of values. These are my thoughts, you don't have to agree with them or anything, but like, I believe that we live in a country of values that are stated to us from birth, pledge allegiance to the flag, and it's all bullshit. It's marketing, and we're fed that. And the United States just needs to change, I think, in a real way, not in like a two-party system way, where whoever we're going to elect, whether it be Bernie, all of a sudden they're saying he's not a good moderate Democrat candidate. Like, we have Biden now, but Biden is supporting Israel during their genocide. And it's like, it's crazy to me, like, that we're still at this place where there's no accountability. And I think that's what's missing mainly from American politics right now is accountability. And I just got to a point where, I've always been a political person. Like in college, I was very political, and because I, was actually learning about all this stuff for the first time and really getting engaged in the political process. But, there's a part of you that wants to create music. One of my friends was putting it to me this way recently, where like there's two kinds of musicians. It's a musician who says, I want us to forget about all of that turmoil and just relax. Very valid. That's a great way to create music if you want to do it that way. And then there's people who they have to put out a message and say something about it. And I'm in that camp, I guess. I realized that it was just really bothering me, and that my music has always been a way to express my thoughts. And those thoughts were thoughts I was having. And, I don't think I changed anyone's life or anything, but I certainly put out my thoughts. That's
you said something. Yeah, you did what you could do. And you're continuing to do what you do as well, man. It's a massive conversation because it kind of goes into the overarching story of humanity. I would almost say, man, that. So I'm just gonna say it out loud, try to like sort through as I'm saying it. Like, you mentioned about in America having like a two-party system, and I can see that
Yeah.
how that aligns with like the old way of life and thinking of everything was very binary, you know, male and female, this and that, you know, there was always just like, you know, like very binary choices between everything. And in the modern age, we're seeing more and more awareness and acceptance of the fact that actually, believe it or not, humanity is not binary. There's so much gray and there's so much outside of the spectrum and on the spectrum of humanity. And so on the internet, it's been great because we've been able to bring both awareness and acceptance of that and realization of that, where people are able to be who they are in whatever form that may be. That might be your mentality, might be your sexuality, might be your nationality, might be your creativity, your spirituality. Like the internet gives us a place, right? Exactly, dude. And the internet gives us a place to talk about that stuff and also generally be accepting of that sort of thing as well. Making it happen in real life is always a lot slower. And so what I would almost say to you, and I want to see if you agree with this or not, I think that people like you and me and lots of others who I've met as well are very fortunate to have a different perspective on the situation. In large part due to the fact of us being like third culture kids, right? People who are born in a different country or people who have mixed ethnicity in their parents. And so, and it's interesting, right, man? Because like you're talking about there in the States, but I get to experience it here in Korea as well. Like, and it's the same story of like, you know, you grow up in this country and you're told like, you know, love your country, support your country, here's what's what. But then whenever you have situations like you or me or the other people I'm thinking about, when you're born in a different country, you move to a new country, or you're born in this country, you live in another country, live in another country, that whole third culture kid story, you know, you have a different perspective on stuff because you're not growing up in one environment. You're always going to new environments and seeing different truths and different realities about what's really happening, and then contrasting that with someone who's grown up in America their whole life, or grown up in Korea their whole life, or grown up in Canada their whole life. It's like, yeah, we have a different perspective, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. I agree with you. Yeah, my mom's from the Philippines, and when I was 11 years old, I went to the Philippines and I went to her hometown and I stayed at her house. And I had only cold water from a faucet with a bucket, and that changed my life. You know, like that kind of experience made me really thankful for what I have in America. But at the same time, like everyone who I met in the Philippines, in my mom's hometown, was happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's wealth, and then there's emotional wealth. There's community. And I think what's missing in America is community. That's why we're all striving to create communities so much, you know, like we want to create a community on the internet, or I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it's part of it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, like, you know, being a second generation immigrant, or like my mom's first generation immigrant. She moved here like 30 years ago. She just went back to the Philippines to go home and live there and, you know, retire. And I'm super proud of her for doing that. But like my mom did tell me this recently where, you know, like, and America was an opportunity for me, but it wasn't like this perfect place.
Yeah.
And I think I've always kind of realized that too, where, you know, going back to the States, when I was living in South Carolina, I didn't really have this strong sense of community per se, because I was an outcast for being a Filipino kid. And I wasn't like heavily bullied or anything like that, but there's this otherness and difference that definitely does kind of affect your perception of things. And I think that's why seeing what happens today in the States doesn't surprise me. It just tires me. You know, the more things get worse, it's just like another thing. What can I do about it? And I think, you know, these bigger picture problems aren't really, it's not up to us to fix all of these things. We can't. There's no way we can unless we all collectively do it together. And hopefully we're working towards that right now, I think, you know, or change is at least taking foot. But at the same time, you know, each of us really just has to concern ourselves with what are we doing to enjoy our lives and because if you're not enjoying your lives, you're also not able to create meaningfully and put out something that you think will make a difference. Because that's my strength, is being a creative person. So I just really hope that I can create something honest that does something. I don't know what kind of impact it'll have, and it's not really about trying to make an impact, but as long as you're honest, hopefully, I'm just trying to express myself, and politics is just inherently part of that now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. And by the way, mentioning about the kind of discrimination, outcast, the feeling of being an outcast, because being treated that way because you were Filipino, back to what we said initially at the beginning of the conversation, in the same way that for human beings, a lot of stuff is not new. It's rather finding it within ourselves. It's the same with problems, I feel like, as well. It's not that racism and discrimination against Asians is new. It's always been happening.
Right. But it's just now we're finally able to, I feel like I'm finally able to talk about it, or like if I do talk about it, it won't be dismissed. Because,
precisely.
Yeah. And the only reason I bring that up is because I do kind of feel like a stronger solidarity with like other Asians now. What's happened earlier this year, just and is continuing to happen in the Bay Area right now, or even in New York. These attacks on elderly Asian people is just cowardly, and it's hateful. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but generally it's just scapegoat stuff, and it's despicable. But yeah, we don't talk about Asian racism a lot, but it's because there's so many bigger issues like gun violence and racism towards specifically African Americans, because the system is built to keep those people, to keep any of like people of color, POCs, just like at a lesser rung than white, but not specifically like white, even people playing into the game who aren't white. And I think that's another interesting thing. It's all about cognitive dissonance, right? I think there's a part of me who never talked about this stuff beforehand because I had formed over the years a cognitive dissonance from my trauma, where like that's a thing that no one wants to hear about, so I can't talk about it. But now it's like, I don't care if you don't want to hear about it. Like, I think it's important to help other people realize that they can talk about it.
And it's your truth, man. And real quick, I was going to rewind. You mentioned about there being bigger problems.
It's not who I am anymore, though.
Sure.
Either, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I'm 25. I don't really think about what happened when I was like 7 or 13 anymore. But it's definitely there, and it's brought me to where I am today. I would never have moved to California if I didn't dislike the East Coast so much. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, but I also wanted to rewind a second ago. You mentioned about there being bigger problems. I would almost challenge you on that, and I'm sure obviously you didn't mean it in a negative way. Like, I don't think that we can compare problems. Like, if something's a problem, it's a problem, right? And so to your point that you said before,
when I say bigger problems, I mean that they're more concerning to the constituency and the people who are trying to get elected. That's the deeper part of it. Is like, there are a lot of problems in America, and they all need to be addressed. All of them do.
Right.
But because of budgeting reasons, that's a whole other thing.
And that's the thing, dude. That's what I was going to say. Is that
we could do them all if we wanted to tax the rich. We really could.
Is that there's so many problems, and they all need to be addressed.
Right. It's the unwillingness to address them, or the unwillingness to address them appropriately. Yeah. Because every election cycle, we address these issues.
Address these issues.
Literally, we just address them. We talk about them. We say they're going to get done, and then they don't get done, or they do get done. My favorite example. It's not my favorite example because it's horrible, but it's horrible. But like, there's the homelessness. The homelessness issue in Los Angeles County, for instance, is at like a level where just people are like getting sick, and like they're living on the streets because they have to, and homelessness has always been a problem because so many people can't afford their rent out here, and then the system doesn't help them get back on their feet. But now it's not only that, it's like the system just has been overwhelmed and was already being overwhelmed. So for instance, Garcetti passes a policy where let's not get too into this because it's just like, but they pass a measure where, okay, we'll talk to the hotels in the area. They're not letting people stay in their hotel rooms anyway because we're quarantining right now. There's not a lot of people traveling into the city.
Right.
Let's get them on board and let's house homeless people in vacant apartment buildings and hotel rooms. Sounds like a great idea, right? The measure passes. They didn't hire anyone to do it. So because they didn't hire anyone to do it, they never housed any of these people.
Oh my gosh.
They even had the budget for it, but they just never did it. So that kind of thing is just something I'm hyper aware of now, where it doesn't matter what someone will say they're going to do. If there's no action, then I don't support it.
Wow, dude. It's
just
insane.
Very angry about that kind of thing.
And rightfully
can't stand
so.
inaction.
Rightfully so. And I guess that kind of ties into what I'm thinking of on a bigger scale of that, right or wrong, social movements are movements that have to, be built with momentum, and so, like I said, like we both agreed on, that there's so many problems. You kind of have to choose which problems you're going to push and talk about more and more, because you've got to start pushing them if you want them to gain traction and gain momentum. Unfortunately, just saying it's not enough. Just signing a change petition.org thing is not enough. You've got to be able to actually make change and push people to make changes and build momentum behind it, which is great that we have social media to, start things like the Stop Asian Hate movement and Black Lives Matter and everything. But then also on the ground, like you're talking about, actually keeping people accountable to be doing what they said they're going to be doing,
I think protest is our biggest asset to change currently. And I think the Black Lives Matter protests last summer are indicative of that. I mean, we have entire legislatures discussing, like, should we disband police forces and come up with a new system? Maybe they're not going to do it. Maybe that's that same kind of action that we were talking about, addressing. But that's not my concern, right? My concern is just the fact that we got our foot in the door and had them even bring it to the table, because that's never happened before. Or the fact that people all around the world saw that injustice and then talked about their own injustices too. And I think it's definitely been an improvement. And I actually want to share something. I went to this Black Lives Matter rally where we walked to the State House in Los Angeles. And there was this speaker that really left an impression on me. And just very quickly, what he said was, I was at the march to Washington, D.C. when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his speech. I was there.
Oh, shit.
And he's pretty old. And he's like, I was there for the whole civil rights movement. I was there again in Los Angeles during the riots. And I'm here now. And it's not about getting change in your lifetime. That doesn't matter. It's just about working towards change. And he was saying, when I was there in front of Martin Luther King Jr., there wasn't any part of me that really thought we would 100% get these rights tomorrow or even in my lifetime. But I knew it was a step in the right direction. And I'm here today because I know that we're still taking a step in the right direction. And I just thought that was really powerful.
Wow.
I think a lot of people today think that we're just going to fix this overnight, but realistically, this is not something that's going to change in our lifetime. We just have to make the right steps for the next people. And it's bigger than us. It really is. It's much bigger than us.
My gosh, dude! I literally got chills as you were saying that to me. It's a phenomenal story.
That guy really was an incredible speaker.
He's absolutely right, and it echoes in with something I literally listened to last night. There's a life coach, kind of influencer, motivational speaker, whatever you want to call him, named Eric Thomas, a Black American. He was talking about it at one of his conferences he was doing. He was like, "I've got work to do." He's like, right now we're holding police officers accountable for killing, black individuals. He said, this wasn't happening 40 years ago. He said, now we're in motion now. He said a few weeks ago, he referenced a news story where a 7-year-old child got killed in McDonald's. And he was like, there's still work to be done. He said, but at least now I'm seeing that there's actually traction behind it. We're not there yet, but we're on the way, and using that as motivation for himself. How about for you, man? Like, how do you maintain a healthy perspective in the face of all of these overwhelming difficulties and challenges and injustices and inequalities and everything?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it comes down to your daily actions still. There's a time and place to share your thoughts. And then for me, I get pretty toxic sometimes, and I'll just go on a rant and I will be entirely negative, but then that's just not the time and place to share. Like, it's okay for me to feel that way, and I can have those days where I just shut off, and it's okay. Like, you need to recharge, and just I can't be the best person that I can be and do what's necessary to be a part of that greater discussion if I'm feeling like shit. So right now, I spend a lot of time trying to just reconnect to that process of like, who am I? What am I doing? And am I working towards it in a positive way? And it's just a lot of work, but I like listening to birds outside and like getting some reading in. And I've been catching up on some shows.
Nice. And
just making music. That's all I can do, is just try and reconnect with my process. Mm-hmm. And that process is what's going to save me, I can't save the world. I think everybody out there, needs to hear that, it's okay. We alone can't save the world, so take some time off. Like, it's okay to take some time off.
Well, and by saving yourself, you are in a sense saving the world, because the world is made up of individuals. And so I think,
exactly.
As you said, as we collectively make better choices for ourselves, we are, first of all, creating a happy existence for ourselves, a positive existence for ourselves. And then through, is it called osmosis? I forgot the word. You're also affecting the people around you subconsciously by them seeing you doing better, by them seeing you make better choices. And that's why I'm so glad that things like, I was literally talking about this with my mom before we jumped on and recorded this, the fact that health has become a much bigger part of the discussion, in terms of what you're eating and how you're living and what you're consuming. Because there's still, and again, it's not even made the impact it could make yet. There's still a massive majority of people who are very, unconscious or not mindful about the choices they're making, the ways they're living, how it's affecting them. But I'm glad that it's in the conversation now of like, hey, maybe cut back on what you're drinking, maybe cut back on smoking, maybe cut back on this food you're consuming, maybe cut back on this content you're consuming, because here's the effects of it long term. And if that doesn't align with who you want to be, then think about it, So I'm so glad we have these conversations, these topics in the conversation now.
Yeah, I think, like just being able to detach yourself from the feed, when like these days I really feel like I'm caught in this movement. I'm just caught in this movement, or I'm going left, or I'm going down. It doesn't matter, but like this is so robotic for me now. And I am really trying to foster a different kind of connection. Because for 2 years, I've just done this. I seem like a crazy person, but like, just think about it, when you're not watching this, maybe you're watching this right now and you are doing this. Like, we all need to kind of step back and like, just talk to one another. Like you and I talking right now. Right. One of the biggest things that I've been doing just to kind of find myself and be more carefree in my existence is because that's the key, is trying to find that keen enjoyment of living that we all have as a child very effortlessly. If we can figure out how to have that keen enjoyment of living as adults, it's never going to be the same. But like, if we can just have some fun sometimes, it's okay to have fun. Like we all need to have fun. And want to really like call my friends, like I'll call a friend and see how they're doing, or I'll FaceTime somebody I haven't seen in years, but like now we're FaceTiming and we both want to FaceTime. That's great. And being able to talk to somebody honestly and also just spitball ideas off of someone. That's how I heal, is the kind of like support, like the idea that like that still exists, even though we've all been separated for so long, just like the idea that human connection still exists. And this for me isn't human connection. This is me replicating human connection.
Okay.
Or looking at something and enjoying it. But everything in moderation is key, I think, these days. And for me personally, I have to have a point where I put it down, or I like leave it somewhere in the house, and I try to forget where my phone is.
Right.
I don't really like using social media too much, but I have to because it's like my job. I like keeping in touch with people, and I like messaging people, but yeah, that's pretty much
you're right,
the
man.
extent of it.
You've got to keep a healthy perspective on stuff and use it, not let it use you. To kind of bridge the conversation right there. I think that in the old days, like there was so like, again, it's kind of big. I'm trying to see if I can break it down without saying it out loud. We talked before about like the kind of the messed up systems in America and society of like, big corporations versus the working class, and so I think a lot of people became dependent, in the old days at least, people often would become dependent on things like drinking or like alcohol or whatever to kind of survive that kind of lifestyle.
I think we're still there.
Yeah, and then nowadays, even we threw social media in the picture as well, right? So if it's not alcoholism, it could be social media addiction, and then, but to counterpoint that of like everything in moderation. So in the old days, psychedelics were like, massively shit on by everybody. It's like, oh, I can't believe you do psychedelics. That's horrible. But nowadays we're actually seeing, oh, wait a minute, there's some medical properties to psychedelics that could actually be beneficial when used in moderation. You have to really, there's a quote by Bruce Lee I want to pull into it. He said, I can't remember it verbatim, but he said, when I first started martial arts, a punch was a punch and a kick was a kick. He said, whenever I studied martial arts, a punch was no longer a punch, a kick was no longer a kick. He said, after I studied martial arts, a punch was just a punch again, a kick was just a kick. And that's that process, of like, life is just life in childhood, like you said. You get older, you start to examine life. Who am I? What am I doing? What does this all mean? How do I feel about it? Yeah. And then after you make that full kind of evolution, life is just life again. But now you're more settled in who you are. You kind of know what your life or what you're making. So whether it's social media, whether it's drugs, whatever it may be, like you have to examine that kind of stuff and recognize, how is it benefiting me? What's my relationship with this? What's the impact of it, so that you can, move forward in a more healthy and more beneficial way. Oh man.
Absolutely.
Anyway, all that lifestyle stuff aside, you've been incredibly prolific with music, the Static Beat tape, 420 mini tape, singles, Dusty. What kind of vibes are you working with nowadays, man?
It's funny, man. I just want to say real quick, I called it a mini tape, and then I realized it's not really, it's 10 minutes. It's still pretty long. So
I respect artists.
For me.
I just sort of respect how artists name their stuff and how they reference it. I just keep in that same vein. So
thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm just like kind of all over the place right now. I actually am trying to finish this. I'll go ahead and drop like titles, I guess.
Exclusives, let's go.
I'm working on this tape called Koreatown, which is the first apartment I lived in Los Angeles was in Koreatown. But the interesting thing about Koreatown is it's like the demographic is like 80% Hispanic. And that's just because of Los Angeles like makeup. But like I just really like thinking about the time where I was living in Koreatown and like experiencing all these different avenues of life, like whether it was like a beach show down the street, or if it was like me getting some really good food from like this Filipino restaurant, or like a Thai restaurant, or like a Spanish restaurant. and just really being in this new community. But what's strange about it is for the 420 tape was all brand new beats. Like I just made those, and I have a lot of beats on the table that I've made recently, and I'm like working on like kind of evaluating them some more and trying to make other beats that go with it. And if I can get a release going, then I will. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because the Koreatown stuff I made like 2 years ago, and I do like those beats, but I'm at this point where I'm like, am I gonna just like table this and never release it? It might happen. I don't really know. But the good news is I'm working on this series of mini albums, mini releases. And then later I'll release it like on Spotify. But get ready for the Bliss era. It's going to be called Bliss. And there's going to be 5 of them. So yeah, it's not a Dusty level. The next time, you know, the next time something really big happens, you'll know. But I'm excited for Bliss.
I'm looking forward to it as well. There's a lot of tracks on there. I guess it's going to have, guessing by the name Bliss, is it going to have kind of a more like a positive spin on it or something? Or what's the inspiration behind that?
The inspiration behind Bliss, they're all tracks that I made like after I finished Dusty. Even during Dusty, I was just it just started as a place to collect all of these beats that were like really happy, just like when I'm super happy. Like you'll remember that piano beat that I made on top of the skyscraper with the sunset?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that's on one of the Bliss tapes. I love that beat, and I just made that very effortlessly in an afternoon. You know, like that kind of thing is really the whole idea. But at the same time, you know, like finding love here and there, and like kind of working through that, and like what's my relationship to love more specifically. Whereas like Hazakura is like this nostalgic thing about one like past love. Now it's like me imagining like what it'll be like when I am in a new relationship, or jumping the gun and getting too excited about a current prospect of like, oh, have a new relationship.
Catching feelings,
I'm a very passionate person, and I think that having a partner in crime is like an aspect of life that is irreplaceable. You know, like once you find love, you want to find it again. Like, at least in my case. And I'm a very hopeful person these days, and just like looking forward the idea of love, but also recognizing that I don't even know what love is, you know. Still listening to Chet Baker a lot, and
good to hear.
Yeah, I want it to be this thing where like there's 5 tracks on each one, and they each do a different thing, like a slightly different take on what love is. So one of them's like really toxic.
I love it, man. I'm glad to hear this, especially the storytelling aspect. As much as people have, I think for a long time, kind of shit on lo-fi as being just generic background music. That is
there's no such thing.
Thank you. And it's not true. And I've got to have a conversation with you right now, hearing all the storytelling that's going behind this tape. But then also I had a conversation with an artist named Harbor Day. And he was telling me that intense stuff about his project, about how his new releases are like messages to his future children and wanting to leave something for them. You know, in case he doesn't get to spend as much time as he wants to with them. And so having some kind of documentation that they can listen to and know like, hey, that was my dad. It's like, there's so much storytelling whenever it comes to lo-fi. It's crazy, right? I literally started like tearing up in the conversation because it was pretty deep. But yeah, there's so much storytelling happening in lo-fi, and I'm glad to see it because it's storytelling is so underrated right now. And it's another, and also to tie into the conversation we've been talking about with community, telling stories is also a great way to build community, organic, natural community of people who, you know, are on the same vibration because we have similar stories or we see ourselves in each other. So it's super cool that you're doing this, man. I can't wait for it. You've given us kind of the nitty gritty of like who you are right now with your life. We've got to talk in depth about it. to kind of summarize, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about yourself right now, man? Like everything you've gone through, everything you're about to do at this space and time right here, right now. Because with the podcast, obviously, we get to document it and kind of capture a moment in time to look back at. How do you feel about yourself and your life at this point right now?
I think I need to double down and just work harder. Honestly, 100%. Even though I already work hard, like I need to work harder. And I know what I need to do. And I know that I'm not doing it as much as I should be. And honestly, like, yeah, like I need to cultivate a continual work ethic that not only can I be proud of, but I can see results from. Because the thing that's holding me back right now is like this whole concept of, should I finish this? Is it worth finishing?
Right.
What's the payout from that? And I need to just remember why I started doing this, why I continue to do it. And it's because, like I said to you, before, like music is a conversation, and I just know that I want to be a part of that conversation in any kind of way. And if I'm not, I tweeted this a while ago, where, it doesn't matter how much music you're making. If you're not sharing it, I can't listen to it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like I'm making a lot of music and I'm not sharing it. And when I really search inside myself, I know it's because I'm holding back. Like I'm afraid of what it'll feel like when I let go of these tracks. And realizing really that, like, there's no such thing as better. There's no such thing as getting better as a person, or getting better as an individual, or even reaching a better emotional state. It's just always waves. It's always this fluctuating path. And what you realize is, like, I was telling my friend Gabby this, where in life we see a speed bump, right? And we're always going to hit the speed bump. Once you see the speed bump, you're going to hit it. But you have two options. When you hit the speed bump, you can go, oh my God, I hit a speed bump. I hit it too hard. I ruined my car. For all
Gave myself
all the
whiplash.
car heads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe this. I hit that speed bump going 75. The second option is you see the speed bump, you know you're going to hit it, you're gearing up to hit it, you hit it, and you go, wee! That's the second option, is just to trust the process and understand that at the end of it, you're going to come back down. It's just a speed bump. It's nothing. In the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. The thing that changes is our perception of that moment that would otherwise make us upset. If we can over time hit as many speed bumps as possible, and each time that speed bump bothers us less and less and less, until eventually hitting a speed bump is something that's fun for us. That's what I want to do. That's my goal, is just to continually keep working at, like, not only my work ethic, but also my emotional state, and the realizing that who I am is who I am, and I can't change that. All I can do is change my perception of that. So,
and if you get scared of the speed bumps, what happens is you stop driving, and then nothing happens.
Yeah, you could get a bike. That's a great way to shift.
The point is just like I love that. That's amazing, the metaphor. But like, yeah, if once
I'm sure there's a better one out there.
No, that's perfect,
that's what
dude.
I've been thinking.
That's perfect, because something I say a lot is that life doesn't stop; it just keeps fucking moving. And so you can either go through life being angry about the speed bumps, you can go through life getting a better perspective on the speed bumps, or what unfortunately happens, a lot of people just get tired of the speed bumps and they stop driving, and that's not a great ending either. So we've definitely got to be mindful about it throughout life, of that continual process of, like, checking in on yourself. You've been in the game for many, many years now, put out multiple singles, and you're still at a place right now where you're overthinking it, right? And I'm in the same way. Like, I am. Even though I talk about, life development and self-improvement on social media, like, even I have to do my own self-improvement of, like, oh, it's happening again. Oh, that bad habit's happening again. Check myself, Life is life isn't as different when you get older as when you're younger. It's just you have to keep checking in on yourself. You got to keep, developing yourself and getting back to basics. So
yeah, and we all have tendencies. We all have tendencies that we want to like go back into, and they're not necessarily good for us. They're just what's comfortable to us. So that's really the whole thing is learning to be comfortable with something else, and understanding that like just because something's easier, it doesn't mean that it's something you should do, or just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Wow.
To put it simpler.
Yeah. So I guess
just do what you want and do it 100% and work for it. If you want it, just do it. Like there's one more thing. It's like this interview with Childish Gambino like years and years ago because the internet came out.
Right.
He was saying like, people ask me like, what gear do you use, or what program do you use? What are you using to like equalize? What are you using to master your tracks? Like there's something that you're doing that I can't do, and that's why it's better. But then he goes, no, you just don't want to do it. If you wanted to do it, you would be doing it by now. Stop coming up with reasons for why you can't do what I'm doing, and just realize that like, if it's that important to you, you just have to do it. Like you were saying, like with your podcasting, it's like, it's something you have to do. It's your creative drive. It's what gets you up in the morning and gets you going. And like, it's how you connect with this greater conversation, this like humanity thing. And I really believe that, people can be dismissive about lo-fi hip hop or beats or like singing or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're creating it, that's awesome. Like you're just putting it out there, and you're actually like making yourself heard in any kind of regard. You're just making yourself heard, and that's important. That's powerful.
It is powerful, man. And it's funny. I mentioned I named the last episode we did together taikun, on why being yourself is the way to win. And it's cool because we're checking back again on the same journey, of being yourself. Is what all of you've talked about today. And by the way, I completely agree with it. My whole life has just been a process of learning to accept who I am, even though people around me might not accept it, even though people around me might not understand it. Like, that doesn't matter. Because when I die, like those people are going to be on my deathbed with me. It's going to be me, like facing what I've done.
You and all the people that like you really connected with.
Right, dude. Right.
It all comes back to Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh man. All right, dude.
Show on TV.
I think you mentioned it already, but your agenda for the rest of the year, I guess, putting out the 2 beat tapes you mentioned. Is there anything else that you're working on for the rest of the year?
There might be a 3rd beat tape, but I can't say.
Cheers.
There might be a 4th beat tape, but I can't say. There's a lot of work, and I actually do have a upcoming gig.
Let's go.
It hasn't been announced yet. It's on May 29th. It's with Productive Culture on Instagram. They also have a YouTube page.
Very good.
But I'm very excited for that gig. It's my first time playing with them out here, I believe. So yeah,
is that gonna be a live show, or is that gonna be online?
It's gonna be a live show online.
A live show online,
is my
of course.
Favorite kind of distinction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be sick. So definitely tune in if you can. Yeah.
Fantastic. Finally, man, the last thing I would ask you to do is to leave a message to the you of 1 year in the future. So to the taikun of 2022, what would you say to yourself?
Can I do 2? Can I do 1 joke and then?
Please say whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say.
Dude, stop buying shoes online. They're not gonna be your size. Like every time you do it, they're never your size.
You don't know that. They might fit this time.
That's the first one. The second thing I'll say is quality over quantity. Stop pressuring yourself. Maybe even take 2 years off. Just do whatever you have to do to make the work as good as it can be. No more perfectionism, but as good as it can be. That moment in time that you're at, try and capture it. But, the moment we start trying to do something with a purpose, that's where it gets muddy. And be a little less purposeful and a little more intuitive. And I know you can do this.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Can't wait to pull that up a year later and see where you're at. I know you're going to be at a much more improved place, a much more stable place, a much more happy place as well. So can't wait.
Thank you.
All right, dude.
I
As
hope
always,
I have a big rack of shoes behind me.
with a sign bought on the internet. None of them fit. Speed round, dude. The very last thing is a speed round. So I'll ask a very quick question, give a very quick response. Ready?
Okay, I'll try.
All right, here we go, man. Favorite colors to wear?
Black and dark green.
Favorite snack foods?
Wasabi peas.
Best and worst days of the week?
Easily Wednesday and Monday.
So Wednesday's the best and...
Wednesday's the best because it's like halfway.
Okay.
I like halfway points.
Got it. And then Monday's the worst?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
The Sopranos.
Favorite song at the moment?
Every Day by Lucy Dacus. Dacis?
What are your go-to leisure activities?
Golf. No, making fun of golf.
Taikun World Tour. Name 5 cities that would definitely be on the schedule.
Los Angeles, Jakarta, Tokyo, Portland, and Manila.
Manila, let's go.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Makes
What
sense.
words or phrases do you use a lot?
Bet, for real, 100%. And oh yeah.
Name one person alive or dead that you want to have a conversation with.
I would love to have a conversation with Chet Baker, just to pick his brain.
And the very last question, how do you want people to think of you?
He seems funny. He seems like a funny guy.
Very good, man. Very good. That was incredible, man. I really appreciate you jumping on, having this conversation. We got into so many amazing things. Let me check if we have any questions from the audience real quick. And no, we're good to go. All right, man. Is there any last words you want to say before we wrap it up?
Just thanks for having me, Ben. And I really look forward to doing this again. And thanks for doing what you're doing and giving us a platform to talk about stuff and also just have a conversation. It's nice.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you for jumping on and being so open, so honest, so authentic, and just sharing your story. It's an absolute honor to document it and to be here alongside you, seeing everything you're going through and learning from you as well, man. So just continue the I don't want to say hustle because it's not about business. It's about life. So continue your life, man.
Journey. Continue
your journey, your life, your story, because I love to see it. Everybody, thank you guys for watching and joining in. Let us know what parts were your favorite. Please follow taikun on all the social media, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you may find him. Listen to his music and support him. An organic, authentic, real human being doing incredible stuff that I am truly passionate about. Everyone, we will see you on a future episode. Have a great night and take care.